blessed to have Bobby Sullivan joining us for this episode of Profiles of Faith. Bobby, good to have you. Thank you for
Thank you very much.
sharing your time. We're just going to jump right in and kind of start with your childhood and where you were born, where you grew up, your influences, and your early childhood.
All right. Born May 4th, 1963, Tyndall Air Force Base. My dad was in the Air Force. Have a younger brother, an adopted sister. Grew up with my parents keeping foster kids. Uh, Till I was age 8, we lived in Lynn Haven. Then we moved out North Bay County in Youngstown, and that's I was there till I was 18. Uh, Grew up in a Christian home. Was an outdoor boy. Uh, the vernacular would not be redneck back then. It was a dirt boy. I was a dirt boy. I stayed outside. I enjoy the outdoors and have my whole life. I enjoy nature. I enjoy God's creation. Uh, Several things when I was a young man. Played sports just like most young men. And then teenager, ninth grade in junior high school. At about 2 a.m. in the morning, a train derailed in Youngstown. Well, that train happened to be pretty much in front of our house, right down in front where the information we received, it was in front of our home. Well, there were big banks, and it was down about 10 foot. When elevated at that point, they'd cut it down. And so the information we received, it was blocking our driveway. So my dad called our minister at the time, asked him to pray for us, and told them he had hunted with us some. He said, we're going out the back, which means we were going through some pulpwooding roads and pulpwooding areas to try to come out to the highway, get around where we were told the incident was.
Mm.
Well, it was chlorine gas. When we did make it to the vehicle, my dad had the wherewithal to tell us to put towels over our face. Our cows, had their nose on the ground, which is very odd. You know, my dog which was a yard dog, a bulldog, was acting very strangely. We had these gates that had to be opened up, but they were not hinge gates. You just had a wire around their big oak panels that come out of railroad cars.
Mm-hmm.
My dad said, get out and open the gates for us, son. We're going out the back. Opened the first one, closed the first one. When I went to open the second one, I got me a good gulp of chlorine gas, and I kind of faded. Dad assisted me, get me back in the truck. We got the gate closed. Had to jump a ditch, do all these things to get out. We finally got out. He told some deputy up near Highway 20 that we were out, headed to the hospital.
Mm.
But that was the beginning of my journey in faith.
Mm.
I had been baptized. I understood things, but I didn't really understand my journey with faith. But I watched my dad reach out for prayer. And he had faith that God would answer. That was the beginning of my serious spiritual journey, which was up and down and all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And those, you say you were 9 years old?
No, I was 14.
14.
At that. My brother was 6, I think, at the time. He's 8 years younger. You know, that affected me, you know, more than I thought at the time.
Mm.
You know, and it still bothers me. It's not something I talk about very often. But, you know, as I grew up in the church and my faith was challenged because, you know, back then the Church of Christ was pretty hardline.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't much grace talked about, or grace was not talked about.
Right.
And with no grace, at about 18 years old, I just figured I couldn't live up to anything, and I was just going to live my life. So I became somewhat of a prodigal son. And, it took me a few years to get my feet back under me and realize that what was important in life and the things that I had been taught as a young man began to really take hold. In that time, before I married Bryce, I was long lining for tuna, and I was still sowing my oats a little bit. And it's a pretty rough life to fish offshore 30 days at a time. But I was long lining for tuna. And we came up on a big storm. And there were maydays going off, and we were like 200 miles offshore. Another vessel called and said they needed help with their gear, hauling the gear. And it was common ownership. The two, our boat and another boat were owned by the same man. He told us we need to go haul their gear, which ours was in, and we were headed home. We were headed to the hill.
Yeah.
And, I didn't realize the Holy Spirit was in me, that I had suppressed it. And I didn't know that any of the guys around me saw it. I didn't think they did. And that they came to me collectively and asked me to pray. Well, I did. And that was really the beginning of me turning my life back around. So
was that 18 years old too?
No, I was like 20 at the
So
time.
18 is about when you said you kind of
I was just
got tired of
sowing wild oats.
Yeah.
And I was probably in my early 20s and realized that I need to straighten my life. So my life, I met Bryce. We started a family. Then my faith was very important at that time that we raised our kids in a Christian home.
Yeah. Before you get into that, just a couple questions for you. So when you said you were baptized, when were you baptized?
I was 12.
Okay. So it was a couple years before the train incident.
Yes, about 4 years before the train incident.
And you did mention cattle. So you grew up farming.
What is it?
You mentioned cattle earlier. So you grew up farming?
Yeah, I grew up around, it was a small farm.
Yeah.
My dad we probably had a 4-acre vegetable garden, and then he farmed about 10 or 15 more acres that were somebody else's across the way from us. And we would keep a couple cows, chickens, pigs. I literally would slop the hogs before school. So
enough to keep you busy. Enough to keep you busy. Huh?
Enough to keep me busy. Yes. I was running a tractor at 9 years old, bush hogging and disking. So yeah, I grew up.
Yeah.
Basically, a little farming anyway. So.
And then sports on top of that. What sports?
Baseball. Then that was the only thing available to us up there was baseball. I played a little basketball in junior high, but back then, only thing available to us in that rural community was baseball.
Right. Well, so up until what's that time period, your first 20 years or so, who was your most who were some of your most influential people on you?
My dad was very influential on me, but we struggled in our relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, our relationship was a little bit of a struggle. I found some comfort in my grandfather, which lived here, my mom's dad. He liked to be outside. He liked to fish. So he and I were tight. I had a couple of uncles on my mom's side that lived here, and we were tight. Had there were some people at church that took interest in me as a young, and meant a lot to me. They, hey, let's go fishing.
Yeah.
A grown man with a wife asking a teenager to go fishing.
Right.
Those things meant a lot.
And so, it sounds like your mom's family, Miss Rose's family, are from this area.
Yeah,
very
my mom's
established.
family was here. My dad's family was from Middle Tennessee.
Okay.
So our interaction with them was twice a year, Christmas and one time in the summer.
So the Air Force brought him down, and he just stayed.
Yeah, my dad got out of the Air Force and went to work for Southern Bell, and worked there until he retired. His first retirement.
Yeah. So so now we're here now. 20, early 20s. Meet Bryce. Y'all get married. You talk about meeting Bryce or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I was fishing, long lining, went to cash my check, didn't have my wallet. And I mean, that's the truth. I didn't know what I did with my wallet. It was somewhere on that boat, but I went to cash my check. And back then, it wasn't much about a bank account. It was about cashing your check.
Yeah.
And I went to do it. She happened to be a teller. And she whispered to the other lady over there, "It's him. Just cash it." I looked at her and I said, "Oh." So I did my little investigation, went in the bank the next week, was off for a few days, went to the bank the next week, asked about her, found out everything I could, and then was able to get a phone number and gave her a call. And we started dating. So,
So that was your introduction into grace, huh?
huh?
That was your introduction into grace,
Yeah.
learning grace.
Yeah. And, it blossomed from there. And now we've been married since, bad, you have to edit this part, but 88, 37 years.
So you guys get married in 1988. So you start your family and become a father.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I had a family, son, son and two daughters. Now I have a son, 2 daughters, and 8 grandchildren. And I'm very blessed.
How did that, or did that? I'm willing to bet it did. How did that influence becoming a father, and how did that influence your not just your faith, but your whole thoughts on? It's like you said, about 18, you were challenging that. How what did becoming a father do to
Well,
your spiritual?
becoming a husband and father
Mm,
changed my attitude and outlook toward everything.
mm,
And I realized that the deal was I had to work harder and smarter than anybody else around me if I was going to succeed.
mm,
And my philosophy became I'm going to hustle till there's nothing left in the tank every day till I get my family where I want it to be.
mm,
And for years, we struggled. We struggled.
yeah.
And my dad one day told me, came back home from Mobile. We were living in Mobile. Drove back on my wife's car, and the tires were what we would call a maypop. You know, struggled with that. Struggled with making our ends meet every week. I was working 70 hours a week, but still was just barely getting by. If the
Yeah.
washer broke down, it'd be like if the washer quit, it'd be a major deal.
Yeah.
And but my dad said, "Son, are you tithing?" I said, "Dad, I'm trying." He said, "Son, are you tithing?" I said, "Dad, I'm trying."
Mm,
He said, you got to tithe first. And that changed things for me, too.
yeah.
And then the hustle began to pay off. God began to bless my efforts. And I went from a crew to a superintendent to a general superintendent to I had offers in Mobile to go in and work for Exxon Corporate. Uh, we things just began to blossom for us.
Yeah.
A few years later, we moved back to Panama City. My wife was homesick, so we moved back and took a job as a plant manager for a concrete precast plant, and stayed there. I told him I'd give him 1 year, see if I liked it. At 1 year, I went into the bit. After 1 year, I went into business with another guy, the owner of the precast son. And we were in business a little while. He was not an honorable person, so I went out on my own, and I've been self-employed ever since. We've been blessed with our efforts, and God has really, really blessed our business. I think now we're 28th year of being It's been a journey, but we've been blessed, and God never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah.
And through all this, my saying is, you can't outgive God. You know, whatever you do in His name, and you're going to be blessed so much. So my banner went from working hard and keeping my head down to you can't outgive God.
Yeah. And so you said, again, when you about 20 years old, that's when you started to come back and get, I think, serious about your faith. And through this whole period of becoming a husband, becoming a father, and then you talked real quick about, briefly about your dad challenging you on tithing. And I'm not going to assume that was you struggling with faith. I think that was a good positive challenge. But during that time, was your faith pretty cemented by then, or was it still kind of wavering, or any particular
I think
challenges?
my faith was in a juvenile state.
Okay.
You know, I understood it a little bit, but I didn't really challenge it. I didn't really realize what faith did for me.
Mm.
And it was like if I was in need, I had a lot of faith if I was in need.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was okay, then my faith kind of just got put over to the side.
Right.
We were a young family living in Wilmer, Alabama. We bought our first house. A man, owner financed, of course. I had Bo, 2 girls, RN lady, and there was a no burn ban. And Bo had a little motorcycle. So I went to the store to put air in his tire because they never compressed it, so he could ride his motorcycle. So it was Saturday. I said, okay, let's go put air in your tire and you ride your motorcycle. Got a little gas, put air in the tire. On the way back, I saw smoke coming from one of our neighbors across the highway. My dad said, never leave a man in a ditch. So thought I knew where it's coming from. Went there. They needed help. They had a dozer there. I can run about any piece of equipment there is. So I got on the dozer and was cutting fire lanes to keep it off the house. About 30 minutes into that, I had Bo in the truck. 30 minutes into that, I cut most of the fire lane. I got an overwhelming sense I need to go home. Like, I gotta go home. And that's not me.
Right.
And I said, I gotta go home. I gotta go home. I gotta go home. So in just a second, I get the path. I told the guy, I said, I'll be back. Just need to go home. Jumped in the truck with Bo. We took off, went to the house. And about half our yard was on fire. It's just so weird. And I take it an angel told me, look, you need to go home. Mm. So water hoses, find the fire, calling the fire department getting there. And it got about, I don't know, 2 feet from our gazebo and right up to the footers of one end of the house. I mean, right up to the wall line. It was brick, but it was built on piers, so underneath the wood frame. So, it's just, it was a God thing. Then, at that point, right there, started really thinking about my faith and what happened when you were faithful. Because that day, God was faithful to me, and I realized it.
How old were you at this point?
I'm trying to remember. Came back. I was probably close to 30. Okay. Probably around. And in a year or so, we moved back. But that began a wild spiritual journey. Like selling a home, we had to sell a home, and it wasn't selling. And we were living in an 800 square foot apartment with 5 of us that my dad owned. Hmm. And the kids alternated staying with my mom and dad or her mom and dad, so we would have enough sleep. And I prayed next week house. I mean, within like, when I finally said, I'm done, it's all yours, God, you got to handle it. I can't do it. When I exhausted me being in the mix and turned it completely over to God, it was what I could say almost instantaneous. And that was great to see. You know, then my life began to building up life here, getting a home here, buying property, and all those things.
It sounds like even though you said that your faith kind of at certain periods maybe wavered or was challenged or something, but it seems like you've always, or maybe you can answer this. Have you always been almost like it seems like you've been receptive to knowing God is there and just it, you've described experiencing there's like a call or a move. So you've always kind of known He is there. It's just been more of
I knew He was
listening.
there. I just tended to get in the way.
Right.
It was, I'm going to do it. I'm the man of the house. I got this.
Right.
And sometimes I've got this attitude is good.
Yeah.
But a lot of times in your journey with faith, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And it was a problem for me. It was my problem, and it still is today sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm doing it, and then all of a sudden the light comes and I turn it over to God, dummy.
Yeah.
It's time to stop this process of you doing it yourself and turn it over to God. And some of us are stubborn and hard headed, and my will of being a man is for me to handle it. And I think, oh, I got this. And sometimes I don't have it. I don't have it. I don't have the capability. It's beyond me.
Right.
And it's taken a long time, and I still mess it up. Today, I mean, just a few days ago, something was on me, and I was trying to handle it, and I finally said, "Hey, dummy, just turn that over to God and let it go. Just turn it over and let it go."
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna turn that into a new motto. Turn it over to God, dummy. I didn't get any better than that. I think that's you've got a lot of good one-liners, by the way. I think that one might be my favorite so far. But so I mean, let's just get into the I guess the weightier topic of faith itself. Like, how would you describe? If I was just to ask point blank, what is faith? How would you describe that?
well, the easy answer is believing in things not seen, but the fact of the matter is knowing that He's there and He's got you. He has you. He has you. He has your family. He has you. You just got to allow Him to work. And to me, that's what faith is. Faith is knowing that I got the best player on any team in my corner. And Bobby needs just to get out of the way. And that's what faith means to me is saying, look, yeah, that's a problem. And we have recurring issues in business and everything. There's things that happen,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And when those things happen, you have to say, all right, is this going to eat me up? Am I going to be an angry man? Or am I going to turn this over to God?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, every time I let it go to God, it's just things happen. But look, it's not as bad as it initially appears. God's got this, and sometimes He turns that mess around into something great.
Right. There's a sense of peace
Oh yeah,
that comes with that.
it is.
Yeah.
It is, because you get up in the morning and worry because you're in business and you put 15 vehicles on the road every morning with guys in them, and dump trucks running down the road, and a low boy running with 90,000 pounds on his back down the road, and you see those wrecks and things that happen. And I've had dump trucks turn over and everything else. One of those instances, if God didn't have it, could have turned into I'm out of business and bagging groceries or something.
you've talked a little bit throughout your experience growing up and all of that. Some challenges to faith, challenges to your faith. Your dad challenging you in a very positive way. As here you are now, a grandfather, and an elder in a church. When look at and sit and listen to others from a more general, like maybe 30,000 foot view, what are some challenges that you see are to faith today? Maybe not to you necessarily, but as an elder, as a father, grandfather, what are some challenges that you are kind of very alert for or wary of?
I think the challenges as a grandfather is that your grandkids look at you, and all these little kids in here look at me.
Mm-hmm.
They expect a certain level of behavior from me all the time, and they expect me to be honorable all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandkids expect me to be, sometimes almost superhuman because of what their expectations of me. And I know I'm going to fail them at some point, but my driving deal and my is, Lord, don't let me fail them.
Right.
We're their faith is going to be based on what they see at first, and then they live it. Mm-hmm. But at first, it's on what they see, and we all have that responsibility to show our kids, grandkids, and other kids, and other kids in the church, teenagers, and all, that our faith is real. We believe that faith. Mm-hmm. We have confidence in that faith, and I think that's the biggest challenge, that we have to wake up every day, no matter what's happening, put our big boy pants on, and say, all right, today's got challenges, but God's got this, and I'm going to do the best I can today through whatever I'm dealing with. And I think as we see young families and young couples struggle, they need to see a married couple 38, 40 years in.
Right.
Say, look, he still loves her.
Yeah.
He's still committed to her, and she's committed to him. And that's important. And it's important for my grandkids.
Right.
To say, I'm going to stay with Bob and Yaya. And they all know all they got to do is pick up the phone and call us, and then come to our house and spend the night. Mm-hmm. It's a big deal. They all, hey, I'm spending the night. And Warner, just the night, told his mom, that house he has over there on the water. He stayed at the farm a bunch, but he said, the house he has, I want to go over and stay with Pop so we can go fishing. That's the things that are important, because not only do you spend time with that grandchild gets to see you in something, and you get to say, why do we do that? Why do you do this? I do that because of that. And then we catch fish. Hey, didn't God bless us today? We caught some fish, didn't we? Yeah. God blessed us today with catching some fish. And that's important, because sometimes we forget in the little things to give God the glory.
Right.
And he created that fish. He allowed us to catch it. He let us enjoy that time, and then we're going to eat it. It's even better. So to convey that part of nature,
yeah,
I think it's important too.
Well, you're doing exactly what you got from your grandfather, fishing.
That's right.
That's
right.
It's come full circle, and here you are, teaching those same lessons.
Yeah.
And everything that you've described and what you were alluding to just earlier is you've been through those trials. You've been through those struggles. You've been in places where you were uncertain. You didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know if you could get through, but you were still observant enough to see when God was moving, and you can speak to those who are going through that 30 years behind you or 40 years behind you, whichever. And it's like, you're in battle, and there's a veteran right there who says, I've been through that same battle, and you come out the other side. Honorable. You said honorable a while ago. That's a word that you don't hear a whole lot. That's kind of refreshing to hear you say. Yeah.
Well, I mean, these kids look at you,
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking the other day, and somebody said, "How do you remember all their names?" I said, "I remember the kids' names better than I remember the adult names." You know why? Because I said, if they walk in the church and the only people that interact with them
Mm-hmm.
is their Sunday school teacher and their mom and dad, we're doing something wrong as a church.
Mm-hmm.
I said, we should know them, and they should know us.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I think it's more important, really, for those kids to know us, for Ezra to know me or Gabby to know me, as much as it is for me to know their parents.
Right.
Because if I can have a positive influence on them, then their church experience that day was a positive day.
Right.
And if they get, oh, slow down, you're running too, or, any negative thing out of church, that sticks.
Yeah.
You want it to be a positive experience when they come to worship. And that begins the building blocks of saying, hey, look, I'm having a rough week. I need to go worship.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, you're being an example of grace. That thing that you talked about as a kid that kind of you unknown to you.
right.
You're kind of run off a
That's
little
right.
bit, and here you are being an example of that. So even, well, I guess we'll speak to that a little more directly as far as with that experience as a kid, and here you are as a leader. I mean, you've already described being intentional about extending grace to the kids, and I will say I do love how you brought up the seriousness of how you interact with the kids, and how you're an example of faith with those kids, and because of, and you're alluding to, I think, maybe Jesus's words as far as how we are treat these young ones, and the fact that you take that so serious, uh, is an amazing thing. But as far as where you are now, let's bring grace into the question, or into the conversation a little bit. How do you, with your experience and your negative experience, is there any intentional steps or any intentional thing that you do or say or try to do, um, to combat that, so these little kids don't fall into that same rut that you fell into?
I think that it's important for us to all show grace. If we show grace, then we teach grace.
Yeah.
And look, they can make a mistake, and you got to love on them anyway.
Mm.
I love you no matter what you do.
Mm.
You know, my kids know, my grandkids know, I love them no matter what they do. Grace to me, I have no chance of salvation without God's grace.
Amen.
No chance. Because I am so imperfect that thoughts run in my head, and Lord, push that mess out of my head. He has to forgive me for what's going on that nobody sees but or knows but me.
Mm-hmm.
That grace has to cover that. Because, you can go down the road and get cut off in traffic. Oh, man. In just a minute, I've got a bad attitude and a bad outlook.
Right.
And I've got to change that. And God's grace has got to cover that.
Yeah.
And it does. But to for the kids, we have to show grace. And it needs to be talked about more. It needs to be, I would say that once a quarter, it needs to, and I don't want to put something on Matthew, but I mean, it needs to come out of the pulpit, but it also needs to come out of a classroom.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, we would not harm ourselves at all. We would do nothing but benefit if we spent a whole summer talking about grace
Mm.
and nothing but that. When Kenneth Brazell was here, we were young, we were friends with them because he was the minister here, and his wife Lori and their kids, and our kids were friends because they kind of made it up in age, and we had a great relationship. He taught on grace for months. It was the greatest sermon series ever, because it reaffirmed that, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
God's got me. I can do this. His grace is going to cover me.
Right.
But
Challenges as far as stuff we all deal with, anger, getting, someone getting upset, or whether it's stress with business, whatever it is, you have those challenges, those daily walks. But I don't know that those are necessarily anything that would they can, but I don't think they necessarily in themselves challenge faith so much. Do you have anything, or have you had any experiences where your faith has been kind of shaken or challenged in any way, or has that been pretty cemented ever since?
I mean, it's the devil always challenges,
Mm,
and there's always challenges with business. And my motto is always do the right thing. We
mm,
need to do the right thing no matter what. And we had a situation this week. Contractor fell behind on a job. The owner, which is a major corporation, owner's rep called us and said, "We need you to move in.
mm,
We need you to take care of business. We need you to get this ready, make a pour, do this, that, and other." And I was talking to Bo, and I said, "Hold on, we gotta make some phone calls. They're asking us for something. We've worked for them in the past. We're gonna do the right thing with them, but we got to do the right thing with the contract."
mm.
So our faith was challenged. Do we really need to do that? We can make a lick right here. We can make some money. I said, but the right thing to do is call them. So we called them. I called the project manager. I called the estimator. Called and I said, "Look, man, here's the deal. They want to bring us in. It's your job. I don't really want to be in the middle of this, but they're reaching out and they expect me to respond."
Mm.
But we had to make the difficult call. Now we could have not made the call, and we still would have done the work,
Mhm.
still would have made the money. But the right thing to do was make the call.
Yeah.
And the devil always creeps in and says, "Man, why are you going to waste your time making a call?" But the right thing to do was make the call.
Right.
And it wasn't, it's not the greatest conversation. But by the time we had it, he says, "I understand the situation you're in. You got to do what you got to do, and there's no hard feelings." But if we wouldn't have made that call, there definitely would have been hard
Right.
feelings. But the other side of that, the devil says, "Don't worry about it.
Right.
Don't worry." So, yeah, there's always challenges.
Yeah.
And there's challenges with dealing with people every day. People challenge you every day on your faith. You know, it's real easy to not do the right thing. It's much
Right.
harder to do the right
No, I love that because you can kind of just like I was doing just now. You kind of get into this mindset of compartmentalizing or hierarchical, whatever, where it's like, well, this is challenging me right now with my attitude, but it's not challenging my faith. But it almost seems like what you're describing is you let that little one in, then another little one creeps in, and then before you know it, it does start challenging your faith on a you would think on a consider a bigger level
thing. That's
maybe.
right. That's right. If you don't, but even that little thing,
Yeah.
that little thing, yeah, His grace will cover that. But look what it did.
Yeah.
It alienated other people from from your influence on their life.
Right.
So if that guy sees me, he knows I did the right thing. Even though it wasn't comfortable for me to have that conversation, he knows and I know I did the right thing.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have, then every time he sees me, he said, "That dude,
Keep an eye on him.
he didn't do the right. He's not honorable." That's right.
As
Go ahead.
far as your dad being a very important influence to you, especially, absolutely. He was very influential to a lot of folks. And if you don't mind, you talk through that whole process of now you're in a lot of ways kind of stepping into that role in his absence, and just processing that whole stage of life of one of your big influences your whole life, you know, going home like that and
Well, my dad, when I was a teenager, we had a difficult time.
mm,
And later in life, he came to me and he apologized to me. He said I was too hard. He expected so much out of me that I couldn't live up to. And but but that was healed. And then as I matured, he matured,
Mm.
and our relationship became closer. And we were very close. And I watched him through spiritual battle. I watched how he handled it. You know, he'd give me advice. You know, I'd say, "What about this? What about that?" And then later in life, it's strange. It kind of changed.
Mm.
He would ask me, "What would you do here, son?" And you know that at first that was very very odd, you know, for that shoe to be on the other foot.
Yeah.
That became a kind of a challenge because I didn't know what to do. And then after a little while, I embraced it. But I watched his integrity as a man, as an elder through difficult times and dealing with difficult circumstances, even to the point, and you might have to edit this, to the point that it was tumultuous here over something, and I just couldn't see my dad facing it. I was gonna, I was getting, saw myself getting angrier and angrier and angrier about how I felt my dad was being treated
Mm.
because he was standing up for what was right, and it bothered me. It bothered me to my core,
Mm.
and I left. I left because I knew I couldn't stay and not get out of bounds.
Mm.
And you know, I talked to him about it. I said, I can't watch this. And can't see what it's doing to you and to mom and everybody. Can't watch it. And watch it on Sunday and go there and worship and pretend it's okay.
Mm.
And so I struggled with that. But that was God doing that for me. So I wouldn't do something that was foolish. But it also allowed me to visit, worship in other places and and look at other examples of churches and faith of other people, which changed my dogmatic view, which turned me into a much more, look, we're worshiping the same God.
Mm.
We might do it a little bit differently, but we're doing the same thing.
Mm.
We all believe Jesus lived, died, and was resurrected. We all believe that.
Mm.
And because they sing a song a little differently than I do, or their worship's a little different than I do, and then I go looking at Corinthians and I'm saying, I can't say they're wrong. I can't say they're wrong. I can't say that I'm wrong or right. So it was a good journey for me.
Right.
But that journey with my dad really helped me because he was an example of what I needed to do, try to live up to.
Right.
And not many days I don't think about it.
Yeah. So, one thing that, like, just like you were describing, going to other churches or going to other places and worshiping, whatever, um, what you just described, the one universal faith, the faith in God that is universal across all of those borders, boundaries, whatever. And if I'm putting you on the spot, you just say no. But I am curious to know if, because I would love to, would have loved to have been able to have the same conversation with your dad, and I would love, you're the closest connection we still have to him, and if you can answer this, what would how would he describe faith? How did he describe faith to you? What were some of his thoughts on that?
I think the way my dad would describe it, he would say, I said, what about this thing? Turn it over to God. I had a problem with a partner, that one that was for a short period of time, and I said he wasn't a good guy. I said, Dad, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry. I can't get by the anger. He said, you prayed for him? I said, what? He He said, have you prayed for him? He said, the Bible says, pray for those that despitefully use you. He said, it's time for you to start praying for him. It took me I probably wrestled with that and wrestled with God for about 3 or 4 nights.
Yeah.
Talking about little to no sleep for 3 or 4 nights.
Yeah.
And finally, I prayed for him. And I began to pray for him regularly. And when we split, he owed me some money and this, that, and the other. I never got that. Never got any of it. But God blessed us so much, it didn't matter. When I decided to pray for him, it didn't matter. And you know, he's came to church here maybe 3 times when I invited him. 3 different times, he and his wife. And, you know, that's my dad's faith. That describes his faith.
Yeah.
Did you pray for him? And at the time, that was nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, really?
Yeah.
I'm in my early 30s. Really? You want me to pray for that guy? Did you not hear what I said? What he did? And he was emphatic. Man, you got to pray for him, son. The only way you're going to get peace is you pray for him. He was exactly right. My peace came once I began to pray for him, and I forgot about it.
Man. Is there anything your dad said to you that wasn't challenging to the core? It was a lot of great stuff.
Well, he said a lot of great stuff. Yeah, he was a tough taskmaster when I was a young
man. But and I'm curious about this too. So when you were a kid, the whole grace and maybe works, let's call it, rule oriented kind of faith. That's where you were challenged as a kid. Was your dad pretty stoic on the grace aspect of faith?
There was none at that point.
Okay.
There was none.
Even with him?
Even with him. I mean, I think it was worse with him. And I love my dad to death.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't make him bad. It's what he was taught.
Right.
That's what he knew.
Yeah.
He knew you do this, like this, when I say, when I tell you, how I tell you. That's it. There was no grace at all. Like, if I was supposed to plow this field on Tuesday and it was storming and I didn't plow on Tuesday, you plow in the rain, it wouldn't hurt you. Little rain won't hurt you.
Right.
So come on, Dad, it was lightning. Or couldn't get a tractor to crank. Try to jump it off. No, sir, it wouldn't. What was I going to jump it off with?
Right.
But couldn't, at that point I couldn't win for losing.
Yeah.
But in his defense, he had asthma. The doctor prescribed him steroids, and he was on them every day of his life for about 10 years. And that was from the time I was about 12 years old till I had left home.
Right.
He was still on. And we all know what massive dose of steroids makes somebody pretty hairy.
Yeah.
And I was the easiest one. I was the outdoor. My brother didn't go outside. I was the outdoor guy. I was the one supposed to handle all this.
Yeah.
When he was at work. So.
Thank you for sharing that, especially with your dad. He means so much to a lot of folks. I know you know that, and I would probably be in trouble if I didn't at least pick your brain on that one. But I do want to return to Bobby for a little as we wrap this up. Favorite, we'll go easy. Favorite verses of the Bible.
Proverbs. Proverbs has, I tell everybody, little tidbits of wisdom. Some are chapters of wisdom, and some are one-liners. I love Proverbs.
Yeah.
Proverbs 3, just great stuff. And it's just life stuff.
Yeah.
It's like you said, one-liners. It's just telling it like it is in one sweet, sentence.
Is that where you got turn it over to God, dummy? Is that a
No,
proverb?
that's not in there. But it's probably paraphrased somewhere out of the proverb.
What the Hebrew word for dummy is. Let's find that one out. Most convicting story or moment of the Bible for you?
You know, as Christians and human beings, we always want to put God in a box.
Mm.
And I think the story of Lazarus shows that God can do whatever God wants to do whenever God wants to do it, no matter what the circumstance.
Mm.
And, you know, you've been dead for days. You've been dead for days. You know, if God can do that, God can do anything he wants to do. Right. And I know, you know, the death, burial, and resurrection, all those things are great. That story of Lazarus just means you can't put my God in a box. Mm. My God's bigger than anything. And I think that speaks volumes to what our faith should be. Because that's, you know, if you have faith like mustard seed, you can move mountains. But what does that really mean?
Right.
How little faith do I have?
Yeah.
You know, and that's a challenge. But seeing him raise Lazarus from the dead under those circumstances just hits me right in the face. I don't know. I just, you know, we always want to qualify what God can do and what God can't do. But he can do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
He decides that. He decides.
Amen. No
matter what the circumstance is or what the feelings. You know, and that gives me enormous amounts of faith. Because I feel like if he can do that, man, he can do anything in my life he wants to do. Or any of our lives.
Right.
So that's exciting.
Hopefully this will be the easiest one. Favorite hymn or worship song?
I'm trying to think of the name.
You can sing it if you need to.
Oh, you don't want me to sing. You don't want me to sing. It's about sails in troubled waters, and I can't think. It's contemporary Christian music. It was out a few years ago, and when the economy fell in 2008, all that happened. It was tough. Mm. You know, we were paying people, but wasn't paying ourselves, and it got to be tough. And you know, I'd listen to that worship song pretty much. I listen to Christian radio on the way to work and home every day just to hear that one song. You know?
Yeah.
So there's a pile of songs that affect me in certain ways. And some of them are, you know, right now there's one by the Red Clay Strays. And it's talking about, you know, death. And it's basically a funeral song. But dude, it puts chills up and down my arm. And I've listened to it over and over and over. And, you know, to the point I said, "Oh my wife, you can play that when I die." You know, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of it. I mean, I love music. I listen to all kinds of music. You might not believe it, but this redneck listens to contemporary jazz, smooth jazz.
Hey.
I have album after album, smooth jazz, and I listen to smooth jazz a lot of days.
Yeah.
Kind of chills me out.
You still be a redneck and listen to smooth jazz?
I don't think so. I think they pulled my card.
What was it they called you? You said it wasn't a redneck when you were a kid. It was a
dirt boy.
Dirt boy. So you've upgraded from dirt boy to redneck, and
I'm
now you're smooth jazz. Yeah. Bobby, thank you so much for joining us. Really I got a lot out of your story, and I'm sure a lot of folks will. A lot of great stuff to say. So, we appreciate you guys joining us too. Appreciate Kyle Wright behind the scenes, keeping everything running. And until next time, thank you for watching Profiles of Faith.